Mem Zayin Mebeis, 5 lines on the top. Lema say that Rav Nachman's being a riot to Rav Nachman, and the Amar Rav Nachman, Zman, Shachianu. Imra, you say it, Afilu Bashok. Di Amrit Binan Kois. An incredible Gemara. If you're going to tell me you need a Kois, Kois Kol Yoima Mi'ikam, do you really have a Kois any day? What, he's such a fancy person? You have wine every night? Responds the Gemara, no Raya. Tilma, perhaps, take Lily Kais. Maybe we're talking about a case that this guy had a Kais, a fine schmecker. He had a Kais. Period.
Do we have a place before that depends when we say Shafi on some, or we say by kid or someone?
That's what the Gemara is trying to bring a raya to Rav Nachman. They have Shachianu every day. Responds the Gemara, it's not a raya because who says you have a Kais? Then the flip side would be that you could say it without it. Tzavra Rav Yudah. Now we have a sidebar kasha. We quoted on the bottom about Rav Yehuda about a din of a lina. So says the Gemara, Tzavra Rav Yehuda Shmini Ta'an Lina. Vatanya, we learned in a brayse of David. Vatanya, we learned in a brayse of Rav Yehuda Imer. Minayin the Pesach Sheni. Sheinai Ta'an Lina. How do we know Pesach Sheni does not have a din of lina? Now, what's the din of lina? Din of lina, don't get confused all the Kachim Chaver learning Daf Yomi. Lina, in the world of karbanos, is a psul, leaving a carbon overnight. Over here, it means what? That you have an obligation to stay in Beis HaMikdash, to stay in Yerushalayim overnight. So says the Gemara, are you telling me that the 8th day you need to stay overnight? What's the problem? The problem is you got up in the morning, you go to your tent. Uksev, and the pasuk says, for 6 days you eat matzah. So we see a connection that it says you get up in the morning next to the 6 days of eating matzah. So what do we learn out from there? Es she'to'un shisha, that which has to be done for 6 days, ta'un lina. Es she'enoi ta'un shisha, that which does not have to be done for 6 days, einoi ta'un lina, doesn't need lina. So says the Gemara. So what do we see? Lemute mai. So what is it coming to exclude? What is not ta'un for 6 days? Lav lemute nami shmini shel chag. The Chayra comes to say that shmini shel chag, the 8th day, is not the same as the days prior. If it's not the same as the days prior, there's not going to be a din of lina. Says the Gemara, no, that's not the Chiddush. Loi. Lemute Pesach Sheni dekava say. It's coming to be memayet Pesach Sheni, which is similar to it, that Pesach Sheni is not going to have a din of lina. Meaning, we thought that for this brayso we could learn a Yesod. We could learn Pesach Sheni, and also we could learn about Shmini Atzeres, and also we could learn about Shavuos. We thought that all of these cases we could learn there's no din of lina. Says the Gemara, no. The only thing you can learn from this brisa is that which the brisa says, which is Pesach Sheni, in contrast to the 6 days of Sukkot. Contrast 6 days, which, by the way, just show us something very interesting. Just on the side, Pesach Sheni is real. Stop. Like we live in a world. Pesach Sheni, we don't say Tachman because that's all it is to us. But Bisman Beis Hamikdash, Pesach Sheni is Pesach Sheni, meaning you didn't bring the Karban Pesach time 1, you bring it time 2, to the point that there was a Hava Mina that during Pesach Sheni, you have to do all the dinim that a normal Karban Pesach. You have to stay overnight in Beis Hamikdash. It's regular Karban Pesach. Lemaisa, we don't basket. Lemaisa, we don't have a real Pesach Sheni, so it's not so relevant. But stam, an interesting,
You can't eat chametz, right?
interesting nikuda. When? Is that?
No, not Pesach Sheni. If you bring Pesach Sheni,
You're saying the halachas of the Karban Pesach are the regular halachas? I believe so. There are special unique distinctions, which I don't recall from the Gemara and Pesachim, but in broad strokes, it has a din of Karban Pesach. How the broad strokes, you have to eat it.
Is it a din not eating bread, or is it a din that I need to
No.
carbon?
No. Whatever. These are Gemara and Pesach. You're touching the Gemara and Pesach.
I'm worried about the Pesach when the chef says.
Why Pesach Sheni? Why Pesach Sheni? Why Pesach Sheni?
Huh? I just know one day.
Karbonis. Halavai. Hachinami mistavra. Says the Gemara, I'll bring you a raya. What's the raya? The Tanan, we learned in a Mishnah. Habikurim. The bikurim, which are the first fruits, to unin require carbon, the shear and a shear, utinufa and waving, the lina and staying overnight. So bikurim, which are similar, that what they're an isolated event, also says the Gemara has a din of lina. So what's the raya? The raya is Man Shamis Lei, who is the opinion the Amar that holds Tinufa? Who's the opinion that says Bikurim you do Tinufa? Tinufa means waving. So we're learning Sukkah, so we know about waving the lulav, right? That's really what Tinufa was. Tinufa, they would pick up the carpet and they would wave it different ways. So who is the opinion that says Bikurim requires Tinufa? Says the Gemara Rebbe Yehuda, Vika Amar, and he says, Ta'on Lina. And we see he says, it requires Lina. Titanya, as we learned in a Brisa, Rebbe Yehuda Omer, Vihi Nachtoi, and you shall place it, Zu Tenufa. That's where Rabbi Yehuda learns that there's a din of tenufa by bikurim. So before we go weiter, let's just recognize what was the raya the Gemara just brought. The Gemara just brought a raya that Shitas Rabbi Yehuda is going to be that there's a din of lina by bikurim. What does that show us? Look at Rashi. Everyone look at Rashi, a very important Rashi. Hachinami mistavra. A little bit higher up in the Rashis. Rashi says, what is mistavra? What are we talking about? Deloi mimayit Rav Yehuda. It's logical that Rav Yehuda is not only mimayit, he doesn't only exclude Ella Pesach Sheni Luchot. Again, let's get this clear, which means, according to Rav Yehuda, everything in the world has a din of lina, aside from one thing and one thing only, Pesach Sheni. So how do I bring you a raya that everything has lina? Show me another case that has lina, which maybe isn't the conventional. So by bringing a raya that Bikurim has yes lina, that is a raya that the one thing that is excluded is Pesach Sheni. Are we clear? Are we clear? Amazing. Now let's bring a raya that Rav Yehuda is the opinion that says the din of tenufa. Titania Rav Yehuda Omer v'inachta zu tenufa. Ata Omer zu tenufa. Oinay elo hanocha mamish. How do you know when the pasuk says vihi nachtai that when you bring the bikurim you should place them? So we're learning place means wave. Maybe place means place, right? By tefillin, you put your place your tefillin. So you start waving your tefillin. That's ridiculous. So says the Gemara, how do you know when it says that you should place your bikurim means to wave it? Maybe it means to place it. When the pasuk says v'hinicha and you should place it, hare hanacha amar. We already know that you have to place it. Hamani mekayim. With what do we fulfill the other part of the pasuk? V'hinachtai zu tenufa. This is referring to tenufa. So that's the raya that is Rabbi Yehuda. Chaim, you're coming to Faharis? Nope. That's the raya that Rabbi Yehuda holds. It means tenufa. And once you have a raya, it means tenufa. It's a raya that Rabbi Yehuda holds is yes, a din of lina. Frag to Gemara of Rav Nach. The Dilma Rav Loza ben Yankivi. How do you know it's Rav Yehuda? Maybe it's Rav Loza ben Yaakov. Titanya, as you learned in our Brisa, v'lokach hakoyin atenem yodecha. and the kohen shall take the basket from your hand. We made this teaches ala bikurim on bikurim. Shetunin tenufa. Divrei. Not Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. So we see there's another shita that holds that there's tenufa by bikurim. Now says the Gemara, where does Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov learn this from? My time Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. Asya yad yad nishlamim learns exeres I kalsuv. Ksevach, it says over here, Lokach Tanim Yodecha. Ksevach, and it says Yodov Tiviano is Ishe Hashem. Makan Koyin, Aflahalon, Koyin, Malahalon, Bailim, Afkan Bailim. Hokitzad, how can you do this? It's a Bailim, it's the Koyin. Which one is it? What's going on? Says the Gemara. The both of them do it together. The Koyin, Miniach Yodoi, Tachas Yada Bailim. Oh, Meinif. And he waved his Gemara just effectively brought a raya that we don't have a raya. We had a raya that Rabbi Yehuda was the shita that says tenufa, and once Rabbi Yehuda is the shita that says tenufa, we have a raya that Rabbi Yehuda holds there's yes a din of lina. Says the Gemara no raya because maybe it's a Lotzman Yaakovi. So says the Gemara my havi Allah. Now this my havi Allah you need the last Rashi in the Amid, a very important Rashi. Because Rashi reminds us what we're talking about. So if you were to ask me, my Havi Allah, I would have thought it has to do with this din of Tenufa, Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. But says the Gemara, no. My Havi Allah, what's the maskana of what? Took Rashi, the last two words. Tizman b'shtini. Tachlis. Is there Shechianu? Is there Zman by Shmini Atzeres? Rav Nachman Amar. Says Rav Nachman. Oimrim zman b'shmini shalcha. Says Rav Nachman. We say zman by Shmini Atzeres. Rav Sheshes Amar. Ein oimrim zman b'shmini shalcha. You don't say shechianu by Shmini Atzeres. It's a machlokes. So what's the halacha? Hilchas oimrim zman b'shmini shalcha. Says the Gemara, Tanya Kavasi to Rav Nachman. Let's bring a raya. Shmini regel bifnei atzmai. Shmini is its own yantif le'inyan what? Pizar and kishav. What's pizar and kishav? Pay. Payis bifnei atzmai has its own lottery. Zayin. Zman bifnei atzmai, its own shechianu. Reish regel bifnei atzmai. What does it mean? It's its own regel. Anyone? Second line of Rashi. Narrow lines, very good. No sukkah. Shein yoshin v'sukkah. Karban b'fnei atzmai has own karbanos. Shira b'fnei atzmai its own shir shel yoim, and bracha b'fnei atzmai. You say it's yoim shmini, it's yoim chag, shmini atzeres hazeh has its own brachas. The Gemara concludes a raya. What? That's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. I don't know. It's a good kasha. But lemaisa is yes. Shechianu on Shmini Atzeres, it's its own isolated yontif. Okay, let's pause over here at the Mishnah. Let's try to do. We have still 7 minutes. Let's Chazar Mem Zayin and Beis together. Tomorrow we'll pick it up from the Mishnah, and we'll keep on plowing weiter. Keep on plowing weiter.